when you've got a site, at what point should you really think about having some sort of third-party partners plug into your store?
I think it depends on what you're selling, and it depends on what you're trying to achieve as a business. From my perspective, what I've seen work well and what I've seen fail is if you choose technology that doesn't integrate well into your system, or processes that don't fit well, then you struggle to deliver that seamless experience. And the more disjointed it would appear to somebody that's trying to navigate a website or use a mobile app, then the more difficult it is for them to stay with you. So you lose stickiness, you get a higher bounce rate. I mean, I think one of the classics is I was trying to buy, and I'm going to name the name, I was trying to buy an EasyJet ticket the other day, and they have a reasonably good app on a mobile. So I'm going through the app on mobile. I couldn't buy the ticket I wanted. It just wouldn't let me do it because it was putting obstacles in my way. I went to my laptop and I could just do it simply. Now, how can they get that so wrong? How can they have one channel that works and one channel that doesn't? And the channel that's most likely to be used is actually the mobile channel. So these are classic gotchas that organizations create because they don't think about multi-channel journeys. And when they do work with partners, maybe it's payment partners or whatever, they just don't gel nicely because they haven't integrated properly. That's what I see.
And how can merchants prioritize the technologies they want to add to their sites? So how would you determine the most important in order to roll out?
Again, Russ, I think that's down to circumstance. So for instance, I'm working with a merchant at the moment who has an overstock problem. And the problem, when you actually look at the reasonings behind it, is they don't promote older stock. It gets buried somewhere in their website. They've got plenty of products that they're selling, but they all look roughly the same. And then people don't find those older products, so they don't buy them. So they end up with this overstock, and they'll probably end up dumping it in some sort of fire sale, either to a wholesaler or a distributor or something. And then they're going to lose a load of money. So in that case, if you were pushing recommendations or effectively trying an upsell or a cross sell when someone buys something that's similar, hey, do you want one of these? You might offer, say, 10% discount and actually improve that sell through of that product. And I think merchants need to look at their whole business problem and then go, okay, how do I focus on what my actual problem is? And how do I ensure that I'm always improving my conversion rate? And I think sometimes you find that e-commerce departments become detached from the trading departments. And actually, it's all one business. They need to work together, and they need to look at those real world problems and then work backwards and go, hey, is there a role for e-commerce in helping shift this issue? If there is, how do we do it? And many times I don't see that. I don't see those discussions taking place. It's all siloed.
So is that a sort of integration thing then? So like between your stock management and your e-commerce site, and how that looks from all the departments?
Yeah, it sort of is, because if you take like the technology we have understands margins, it understands stock levels, it understands locations, and it understands what might be selling very well and what might not be selling. And it's able to automatically boost what is not selling because you have stock of it. And again, depending on how you create your merchandising rules, you can promote those items, or if you've got stuff that's out of stock, you can actually offer an alternative. We have a company in Denmark who sells wine, and one of the problems they had is their customers bookmark specific bottles of wine they like, but they come from the bookmark straight to that product page, and if it's out of stock, they were just abandoning. So now they have a Relewise recommendation that says, hey, this one's out of stock, but a very similar product is available. Same price, same type of wine, often the same vineyard. And since that, they've seen a plus 20% increase in conversion, because now they switch the sell to something they do have rather than something they don't.
Is that automated, or do they need to add these alternatives in?
It's 100% automatic. So our product is capable of ingesting all of the data about their the content effectively of what they're selling, and making that decisioning in real time automatically. So once you've set that process running and you've created a product card in the website for that alternative offer, it's automatic, set and forget. That's one of the big pluses of our technology.
So your product, you've mentioned a couple of things, deals with searching and recommendations once you're on the site or on a product page. What else can it do? Describe some of the other features.
Two other kind of core things that we do. So one is we call it kind of trigger-based engagement. So think of it like this. So somebody gets all the way to the basket, but they don't buy something. That's the classic. Then how do you re-engage that potential buyer? So if you know their email address, we can trigger an outbound email that offers them a promotion or a recommendation. We also have something which is more for marketplace, where you can actually have different brands promote their products in a paid advert. So you see this on, say, Amazon Marketplace, where a brand will be promoted in the listing when somebody's searching for something, and effectively we can push them to a identified place in the listing, and the actual brand pays the merchant for that boost in their advertising. And actually works really well for brands. Got a case again with a customer where one particular brand had 126% increase in their sales because they used this boosting feature to promote their products. So they paid the merchant a little bit extra to achieve that, but they got a big return in terms of the sales.
Are many brands doing that at the moment? Many brands signed up to that?
No, actually they're not. And the reason why they don't do it is because historically that's been quite expensive to implement inside your e-commerce system. So we're trying to make that democratized, make it very easy technology to add. And if you think about it, this also then rolls into kind of the concept of buying retail media and buying adverts. And we're working with some third parties to actually try and incorporate that into the whole buying process, so that you could buy an ad on Google, but then you could buy an ad on someone's e-commerce site as well in the same sort of buying process.
Okay. So at some point, we'd like more and more brands to sign up to this, so you get access to those adverts that turn up and push people into your world.
Yeah, sort of. I mean, the thing is, it's an option. So it's not for every organization. It's really for the ones that have got, lots of different products, lots of different brands, and you might have several brands that offer the same thing, and therefore you want to push that. I have another client I'm working with who's actually in the B2B space, and they've got a different issue. It's kind of the reverse of that. They have their own OEM products, but people keep buying the brands. And when the brand is out of stock, they haven't been promoting their OEM product. Well, they make 3 times the margin on their OEM product. So again, we can have rules that work on per margin basis. So it's like, actually always promote the high margin product versus the low margin. And that means if someone's looking at a particular brand, you go, oh, okay, this brand is currently not in stock, but I can sell you my OEM version and it's a really good fit. So all of these different selling scenarios, if you like, can be covered with smart technology. And if you think about it, everyone talks these days about AI. AI has become a really hot topic. But I was looking at actually a post on LinkedIn just yesterday, and someone was comparing 2021 with 2024, and a whole list of different topics that we used to talk about are now all branded AI. But the reality is there's very, very wide range of variation on, if you like, intelligent activity. And what we've created in our platform is intelligent activity that the merchant doesn't have to interfere with. The platform is designed to figure this out automatically, and within a few hours it's doing it. Is it AI? Well, under 24 definition, yes. Under my personal definition, it's very clever algorithms, but same.
With the brand promotion, does the merchant need a direct relationship with the brand to do that? Or is it all done third party sort of thing? Today,
yes. Our vision for the future is no. That they could actually just purchase that as part of their marketing advertising spend. but we're not there today.
So how does that work exactly then? So do they sort of get together and make sort of marketing plans together and try and push this?
It's
Or
a bidding facility within the software, allowing you to promote effectively an advert, and then you can bid an amount of money to do that. So it's a revenue stream for the merchant, but it's like a cost for the brand.
Yeah. I'm just really interested to have a dig around. Like, it all sounds amazing, and all the technologies linking together and helping merchants out. But what kind of improvements can a merchant see from using some of these technologies?
I always think that if you use technology smartly, it's like turning on a money machine. And what we see with our customers is we see dramatic uplifts in critical figures. So, we've seen with a company that's selling art products, creative, 30% increase in conversion across 11 different countries. I mean, these are rather substantial numbers. We have another company that's a reference of ours, Sostrid and Gren, and they are selling kind of home products that can be quite simple. It's like decorations for Christmas, Easter, etc. They're very, very seasonal. They have about 4,000 products, and they're using our email technology. They've seen a 300% uplift in revenue from email promotions. And what they've also seen is the basket size increased 23% from those promotions. So, these are really quite hard figures. We've seen another one that's actually, it's like Holland and Barrett. It's called Helsebixen. And Helsebixen is using that retail media capability to have brands promote themselves. And some of those suppliers are seeing more than 100% increase in sales of their products by using this promoted content. So when you look at these different numbers, I mean, they're vast. And, we see in many of our clients, they're reporting in their annual P&L statements to the markets that they have seen significant revenue uplifts in e-commerce because of the deployment of our technology. So we're obviously doing something right. And I think one of the things that I see as a big theme with merchants on the whole is that there's a real tightness on headcount right now. So organizations, they don't have the time to fiddle with technology like they might have done in the past. And when you go to merchandising teams, they don't want to be sat all day trying to program, effectively code into a computer to drive a product. And I think our sort of set and forget approach, where we have more algorithms than our competitors, we have like 25, most have max 8, some over less than that. Because we've built more algorithms, we can do more automatically. And that means that they literally turn it on and they see more revenue come. And if they want to kind of fiddle a little bit, they can, but most just leave it alone. It's working, so why play with it?
And how long does it take normally before they start to see some results from implementing the technology?
Most a matter of hours. Literally it takes, depending on the site, 3 to 4 hours for it to start automatically figuring out what goes where. It's all based a little bit on traffic. So, we're mapping the behavior of people that visit sites. Most of our clients report significant uplifts in the first month of operation. And, we only charge, we have a 30-day rolling contract. So you can get out of our technology in just 30 days. And we have a very, very low churn rate. It's much lower than the norm in the industry. And I think the reason for that is simple: it works, it generates them cash, it pays more than pays for itself. So they get a very good return on investment, and it works very quickly. So this is why I think we have such a loyal customer base.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a controversial question. Why do you think the e-commerce platforms out of the box are not interested or not as good as you? Why aren't they doing some of this stuff from the start?
I think it's the classic jack of all trades, master of none. I think there's some great platforms out there. I've been working with most of them for many years, but they're built across a wider product problem set, and they're pretty complex products. Some of them are huge, massive amounts of code. And what we've done is we've just taken a very narrow slice and said, we're going to be the master of that. We're not going to do anything else. We're just going to focus on this. And our business was started actually by three colleagues who came from an agency. They sold the agency and they built a software house. And the reason they did it was they were like, we're just fed up of having to fiddle around and fine tune these sorts of searches, recommendations, and it takes so much time. And they saw that their clients were complaining, saying, this is too much cost, this is too much overhead. So it was like, let's go and build something that does it automatically. Let's go and build something that's actually quick and delivers results that people enjoy. And that's where the business has come from. So it's ruthlessly focused on just making this piece work and nothing else. So the only thing we want to do is make sure we integrate nicely. So we're open API, we work with a whole range of e-commerce platforms. We even built a plugin to Shopify. So we're just trying to make it simple for people to add the technology and see the benefit.
You obviously deal with a lot of behavioral data from people's purchasing on websites. Have you learned anything from that surprised you in terms of how people buy stuff online these days?
I'm actually going to go back to a former role I used to have where I worked with a technology that was all about customer experience and behavior mapping. And yeah, one of the things that we had was heat mapping technology. So you could look at where people go in the page. And I remember working with a pizza company in Finland who couldn't understand why their online pizza business was basically tanking. And what you saw was when it was loading the pages, the images of the pizzas were very slow to load. So someone would be looking at a page that was half populated, and who's going to buy something you can't see? And then so what was happening was they were just going for only the ones they could see, and sometimes they were like 3 scrolls down, and people going like, why are they buying that one? Is it that they like that pizza? No, they could see that one. So sometimes you get weird behavior like that. I work with Norwegian Air, and Norwegian Air had this, this is quite a few years ago, they had this bar where they were promoting destinations, and they thought that was driving them massive business. What it was actually doing was creating an obstacle. And what we showed them was that customers were immediately deleting that, immediately trying to get past it so that they could go and search for what they wanted. They didn't want those suggestions. So sometimes you might power a suggestion thinking it's a great idea, but it's got to always be in context of what that customer wants. And I think that's one of the things we learned was you've got to automate your technology, but always make sure it's relevant. If it's not relevant to a buyer, a customer, whatever, someone browsing your website or your mobile app, they don't want to look at it. And that then leads to what looks like weird behavior, but it's not. It's actually human behavior, and human behavior is all about relevance.
Yeah, I suppose all the things that I've learned about cross promotion in the past has been like, we will build this e-commerce store and this thing relates to that. And it's like, you go in and go, this, I'm connecting this up. Really, now it's like there is a system that's learning all this stuff and will try and do it in a relevant kind of way. But the amount of data points you have access to now with all the privacy stuff, is that getting more difficult?
We have 3 profiles in our system. So we have the profile, which basically is the unknown person. So somebody who comes in, denies the cookies. Basically, we don't know where they came from. We don't know who they are. They go through the site. But what happens is we create a behavioral segment for unknown users. And funny enough, there are quite large segments that you can begin to figure out based on the behavior of those people you don't know. Then we have another category, which is half known users in many ways. So somewhere along the lines, maybe they've accepted a cookie. We can use that cookie tracking to identify them a little bit more precisely. So we might know what country they come from. We might know roughly whereabouts they are. And we can start to build another behavioral group from there. And then the final behavioral group, of course, is the customer one. We have your email address, or you have a login to a B2B account. So we know precisely who you are. And so we can build very relevant behavior just for you and give you literally a sort of feeling that the website is just built around you. All of that data is useful because if you think about it, the unknown user may show relevant buying behaviors that could be relevant to the one user we know the great detail of. And that's, again, part of the trick here is to mix and match the data you have. And yeah, if the user is unidentified, then your recommendations or your suggestions to them are more generic than if you are looking at somebody who you truly know. But we don't do everything just based on behavior. We do stuff based on products as well. So if you know someone is looking at product A and it has 5 color variants, you can tell them, hey, are you interested in these 5 other colors? So even though you don't know anything about them, you can make logical suggestions based on what they're looking at. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, it does. The one question that came out of that is, you obviously know data about people. Is that sandboxed per site, or do you use information from one site into another, or that?
No. It's all based on each site. So different. So as example, we do a lot of multinational brands, and each country has different behavior. So what we recommend for one country is different to what we recommend for another, because actually different types of buyers, different things that they're interested in. And of course, all of the data is relevant just to one customer account. We don't share it across multiple customers because, one, they're actually selling different products, but secondly, that's not ethical or secure. So no, it's only your data, only the behavior of your customers.
Are there any trends across particular countries that you see, so certain behaviors that are very much for certain national sort of habits?
I think it comes down to there's channel preferences. So you see that some countries are only really using mobile technology. Some will use a bit more of a mixture of web and mobile. We have other customers where they actually have lots of customers coming into store. So they want to track the journey from the website through to the store. And when in store, if they can identify that customer, and often that you now see in stores, they'll ask you for your email address. That is a connector to all the other data. So I think we've seen in the UK, the death of the high street. But if you go to the Netherlands or you go to the Nordics, you see the high streets are in relative terms quite still thriving. So you see differences based on geography and what's kind of become culturally acceptable. And then finally, there's massive preference differences for products based on geography and based on pricing, and different countries with different taxation levels and different costs of shipping in particular become very different in terms of what things cost and therefore what the preferences are. So yeah, it's hard to say this country prefers that because it's not quite as specific as that, but you do see generally differences in behavior. Yeah.
And I've got a couple of interesting questions to sort of finish on. You go around and meet lots of different people in the tech world and e-commerce world. If you were to build your perfect store at the moment, what would your dream stack look like?
I think I would be looking for value. So, I think one of the things that Shopify is doing is really bringing value to a lot of organizations. You either like or dislike the fact that they've got a fixed checkout process, which is monetizes for them as much as it does for you. If you have a problem with that, I would probably go more for, say, a BigCommerce or somebody like that. But I think Shopify is doing a great job of bringing a really powerful system with a lot of options to the market at an aggressive price. So I personally would probably swallow the extra slight uplift on the payout, the checkout process, but use Shopify because I think it's a very flexible and inexpensive solution. I also think there's so much innovation now coming on around the Shopify platform that's really like companies like ourselves are building stuff for Shopify. You see a lot in the Shopify marketplace. So I think it gives most sort of small to medium-sized merchants and now potentially enterprise merchants a good solution. I would also say that it's horses for courses. I think there are some organizations, say you're in the B2B segment, where you need very specific functionality that might not exist in a product like Shopify. So then you want to look at an alternative platform. So it does depend on your business model. Yeah, I'm pretty impressed with what I've seen out of the Shopify folks.
Cool. And what predictions do you have for the coming years? What's exciting you going forwards?
I think we're going to see a new wave of innovation that will be driven by what the market terms as AI. I do think that's definitely going to happen. I think we'll see two things which I think are critical. So first of all, you'll see better integration coming through platforms like iPaaS, Patchworks being a great example of how to make that easier. And once you make integration easier, then it's better for merchants because they can pick and choose appropriate tech more easily. So I think we're going to see that advance quite rapidly. I think you'll see some of the big e-commerce engines try to go from being, I come from a strong composable background, and you see the Mac alliance growing, becoming very strong, but then you see some of the e-commerce platforms creating what I nickname the Macalith. So they're almost going backwards from Mac and saying, actually, I want to try and be the master of everything. And I think that will continue because I understand the commercial drivers for that, but I'm not sure that's necessarily in the merchant's best interests. So it'll be an interesting battle there. But I think if I come back to AI, I think there will be easier to deploy systems that will drive results faster and that will enable merchants to focus on their business and less on the technology. And I think, agencies like yourselves will become more masterful at getting things out of the box faster, and actually then being able to still customize them so each experience is unique, but actually use a smaller set of technology to achieve that result, which I think is better for you as an agency because you can focus on, things that you can really handle and do well on. And I think it's good for the merchant because better to have an expert deliver value with systems that kind of just work than for you to constantly be fiddling about, oh, did I make the right decision here? I got to take this, I got to retire that. And we see so much redundancy and sunsetting products in our industry, and particularly in the last couple of years. And it's a real problem for merchants because they're constantly having to upgrade technology for no other reason than someone's decided that they no longer want to support that. So that is probably the biggest problem I see merchants moan about, and I think they're kind of right to moan about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really weird scenario where you've got like the big players trying to do everything themselves, and then if you were to integrate like 6 or 7 plugins, you would then have to work. You've got to work with yourself to try and go, well, how are we going to manage all this? So maybe there'll be aggregators who will figure out how that all fits together in a cohesive system too. It's like,
I think when you talk with merchants, they just want simplicity. They want stuff to work. They want it to get their customers through a journey, and they don't want to have to figure out 10 different ways of achieving that. They just want one simple way. So you understand why those e-commerce platforms are trying to deliver a Macalith, as it were, but then, that was tried before and it didn't work. So it's like going back to the past, and people will learn, well, actually merchants need the flexibility. So somewhere in the middle is the answer. And I think that's why the connectivity, and that's why I think the Mac Alliance continues to grow, is really important. But giving the merchant good choice and good capability is also important. And I think people like you will continue to thrive because if you have the skills to make that work for them and to take the pain away, then you represent high value.
Brilliant. Well, thanks a lot, Mike. You're going to be joining us at our event in April, right?
I am indeed. Yes.
And what will you be doing at the event? You're hosting a roundtable thing, are you?
Yeah. So I'm going to bring a few people from some different backgrounds together, and a bit like we've just had a three-way discussion here. I hope to do the same. And it's not going to be focused on product. It's going to be focused on the typical problems merchants are having, why they're having them, and then just 3 different types or 4 different types of technologists talking from different perspectives about what they think are trends, what they think are solutions, and just trying to help people understand different viewpoints from within the industry. That's the goal.
Great. So if you're a merchant and you've got a load of problems, just come along to the big huddle and give Mike them, and he'll sort them all out.
We'll try.
It's on your head now, Mike. You've kind of said it.
Yeah, I love that.